Welcome to the Tennessee Achieves Virtual Community Service webinar. These webinars are designed to provide you, Tennessee Promise students, with an opportunity to learn more about college success tips, careers in your potential field of study, and other topics we think you will find interesting while you are navigating your educational journey. These webinars will also help you complete your community service requirement while it may be difficult for you to do so at this time. A few housekeeping details before we get started. By logging in as a Tennessee Achieves student, we are able to track your attendance and how long you remain actively engaged during the webinar. Once you complete the webinar, you will automatically be given credit for 1 hour of community service. We will track how long you watch, and if you do not watch the webinar in its entirety, you will not receive credit. You do not need to complete the community service form for these webinars. Tennessee Achieves will log your hours for you. Tennessee Achieves staff and partners across the state are providing important insight and information we think you will find entertaining and informative. We hope you enjoy this new series of webinars. Welcome to the Tennessee Achieves Virtual Community Service webinar series. Today we are talking about careers in government, and even more specifically today, careers in state government. We have a panel today across 3 different departments, all working for the state of Tennessee. Are going to talk to you a little bit about different opportunities that you have earning a degree in college, opportunities you may have going to work in state government. The state government, the state of Tennessee, is one of, if not the largest employer in the state of Tennessee. And so we've got a panel today working in different fields, but all going to share their experiences with you as they have navigated their career paths. And I think it's going to be something that you find to be very interesting. I'm Graham Thomas with Tennessee Achieves. I'll be moderating our panel today. We have joining us Mary Margaret Chandler, who's a business administrator in the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. Amy Owen, Director of Policy and Research with the Tennessee State Board of Education. And Dennis Tumlin, who's the Chief Customer Officer for the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development. I want to welcome you all to the webinar today.
Thank you.
Mary Margaret, we will start with you, and we'll go with the whole panel on this one, but why don't you just introduce us, tell us a little bit about where you're from, college or maybe colleges that you've attended, degree or degrees that you have earned, and a little bit about your career path and what you do today.
Thank you. I'm from West Virginia originally. I went to a small college, Gunville State College, out of high school, earned my bachelor's degree in business administration. I worked a while and decided I would go back to West Virginia University, and I attended WVU and received my master's degree in business administration while I was working in an executive type program. I'm, like you said, I'm currently the business manager for TDEC, and I started out after college in quite a few different roles. I've owned my own business, but one kind of constant in my entire career is that all of my positions are very service oriented and serving the public. And so a lot of them have also been finance related and in technical fields.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that introduction, and we're glad to have you today. Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm originally from Maryland. I went to undergrad at Wake Forest University in North Carolina, and my undergrad degrees were in history and education. So I started teaching first in North Carolina and then moved out to Tennessee and was teaching 8th grade in Williamson County schools. I got really interested in education policy. How were all the different rules and policies that I had to follow as a teacher? How were they made? Who was writing them? So I earned my master's in public policy at Vanderbilt. And while there, I started interning in state government in 2013 at the Department of Education. Ended up working there for over 4 years and moved to the state board in 2017. I'm also very slowly working toward a PhD in public policy and administration at Tennessee State University, in addition to working. So keeping very busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Thanks so much for that introduction, and thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Dennis, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Dennis Tumlin, and I'm the Chief Customer Officer for the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga in business administration. And I'm also a certified economic developer through the University of Tennessee Institute for Public Service. And I'm fairly new to state government, have been here less than a year. Proud to join the Commissioner Mark Ezel's team after the election of Governor Bill Lee. And so as Chief Customer Officer, my role is to focus on our top 6 tourism markets and our top 20 attractions. 75% of the state's tourism activity happens in those markets, and we're focused on those. So we have an entire team that works on other areas of the state, but those are the areas that I will focus on. Most of my career was spent at Coca-Cola. I was in national sales and focused, Atlanta-based employee focused on the Walmart national account. So I come from a sales business management background and transitioned about 6 years ago from corporate to came home to my hometown and spent 6 years working in economic development and tourism for Ray County, Tennessee, and led economic development and tourism efforts there. And it's a pretty cool transition to come out of the business world, the private sector, and then come over into public service and have enjoyed that transition.
Yeah, well, Dennis, thanks so much for that background, and thank you for being here with us today as well. Let's start out, and Amy, if you want to kick us off on this one, we can start with you, but tell us a little bit about opportunities at the state board or in-state government for students. I think government maybe isn't always a place that students are thinking about as an opportunity, but like I mentioned earlier, a very, very large employer with really good career paths. What opportunities exist for students that are graduating and maybe like with an associate's degree versus a bachelor's degree all the way on up? What type of opportunity becomes available for you?
Awesome. Yeah, great question. State government is really large, and it can be complicated to know what different agencies do. So the state board is very small. We have a staff of 14 full-time employees. The Department of Education, on the other hand, is very large. I think it's got 400 people in Nashville plus 8 regional offices. And that's because the state board sets rules and policies, and then the Department of Ed is much more hands-on with school districts in figuring out how to implement those policies and monitor them and things like that. So our openings tend to be at the bachelor's degree level and above. At the state board, most folks start as coordinating specific projects or supporting a director to manage a program, something that's like a bigger overarching program that they have a piece of. And then as you move up a little bit, you start being in charge of the whole kit and caboodle, as it were. At the Department of Education, there's a lot of opportunities at every level along the way. From somebody who's more recently out of the classroom, maybe, who has a bachelor's degree and who has some teaching experience, could be doing regional support or coaching for peers, up to people with very advanced statistical degrees working on the state assessment program, for example. There's also the finance office to make sure school districts get their payments every month. There's just a really big variety of career opportunities in education and state government across a couple different agencies.
Yeah, thanks so much for that background. Dennis, what about with the Department of Tourism? What type of opportunities are available for students as they earn more and more education?
That's a great question. And if you'll think about the Department of Tourist Development, we're almost like a company inside a larger corporation. State government, there's over 23 different executive departments under the executive branch, and the Department of Tourist Development is one of those. And inside that department, multiple job opportunities exist. We have a really great marketing team. And inside that marketing team, you have sales staff, sales personnel who focuses on group sales and international sales. We have a social media manager who manages our online content, graphic design, communication, public relations. And then we have our outreach and engagement team. They're the boots on the ground out working with community partners. And we also operate 16 welcome centers across the state, welcoming over 15 million guests per year into Tennessee and encouraging them to visit our great attractions and hospitality partners. So there is a broad scope of job opportunities inside the Department of Tourist Development.
Thanks, Dennis. Mary Margaret, what is available for students at the Department of Environment and Conservation?
Well, a lot of our positions that within our group, they range in two different areas. The state parks are under the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. So at our state parks, we have park rangers, managers. We have resorts there. So folks who have an interest in resort management and doing things like that. So a lot of students might be interested in knowing that our state parks have places for you, positions that are temporary, summer positions to be a lifeguard at the swimming pool. So there's a way that you can start early on while you're young, right? Even, right out of high school, going into college, there are positions available in our state parks if you have an interest in a position like that. But as you earn more education and you're growing in your interests and learning more about what your passion might be, if you have strong skills in science and math, we're always looking for scientists and engineers because they really help us deliver on our mission of managing regulatory programs that maintain our standards of air, water, soil quality, and provide assistance to businesses and communities, from recreation to waste management. So we really we have a great variety. The other thing that I would be remiss to say, folks, we are always looking for good attorneys. We're looking for folks who have an interest in administrative roles. And we have grant coordinators who manage our partnerships that when we receive funds from different sources. And then we need help managing that and funneling that money to our communities. So there are just a lot of great opportunities within the Department of Environment and Conservation.
Yeah, thanks so much for that overview. It's certainly a big department with a lot of different things going on. Dennis, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to kind of ask everyone else some more specific things about your departments. But Dennis, you mentioned that the majority of your career you spent in sales with Coca-Cola, and now you're working in state government. So I guess kind of two questions here. What was the transition like going from private sector to public sector? And then, you were selling a very tangible product, right? Anyone can touch and feel a can of Coca-Cola. We all know what it tastes like. And now you're selling Tennessee, a very intangible product. What are those skill sets like? How are they similar? How are they different?
Yeah, great question. And, at Coca-Cola, a lot of the conversation was centered around price. And you're dealing with a great customer such as Walmart. It was continually a pricing conversation. What will I pay? What will my profit margin be? So having those pricing and profitability discussions, as you get over into state government and particularly in the Department of Tourism, our job is about inspiring travel and convincing people to come to Tennessee and inspiring travel that will generate economic impact. So when you're at the Coca-Cola background, we were about causing an economic event to happen, some transaction to happen. It's really, there's some similarities in that way, that we are inspiring travel to create an economic event to happen. But this economic event in tourism will benefit ultimately through tax collections, state and local tax collections. We're there to drive revenue for the state budget and the local budget through hotel, motel tax, sales tax, different property taxes that are created through tourism. And the tourism's we deliver around $1.8 billion a year to the state and local budgets through taxable events that are inspired through travel.
So what is the pitch? Why is Tennessee a great place to come and spend your time and money?
Well, I think there's three key reasons that drive visitation to Tennessee. And as I was preparing for this question, I'm trying to figure out, which is the most important or which drives more traffic. When you think of Tennessee, some people immediately think of music, and between Bristol, with the birthplace of country music, and Nashville, known as Music City, and then Memphis, the home of Graceland and the blues and all of the great history there. And that inspires a lot of travel. Visitors from around the globe come for Tennessee's great music and the fact that we're home to 7 different music genres. So that inspires a lot of travel. And then you look at our great attraction assets. We have so many great attraction assets, from Dollywood to the Grand Ole Opry to Ruby Falls to Tennessee Aquarium and Graceland and Bill Street. When you look at our straight attraction assets, people come for those attractions. And if music and those attractions are not your cup of tea, but you're looking for something different, how do you beat the natural assets that Tennessee has between the Great Smoky Mountains and the lakes and rivers and streams? We've got so many awesome things to present and to promote and inspire travel. We're really in a great position from a menu perspective.
Thanks for sharing that insight with us and talking a little bit about that transition from the private to the public sector. Mary Margaret, you had a similar journey, it sounds like, as a small business owner and now working in state government. So talk to us a little bit about what that transition was like for you. And then what are some of the real life projects that students could be working on at TDEC? What are some of the conservation efforts that our state is working on?
Well, I had the privilege of being a contractor to NASA. I beat Raytheon out of my very first contract that I was awarded. So never think that your goal is short-sighted or that it's not achievable, because if you have the will, and you're willing to put in the time and the energy, I'm an example that you're able to do that. So I'm excited that I have an opportunity to share that with the students with tnAchieves. At the Department of Environment and Conservation, our mission to protect and improve the quality of Tennessee's air, land, and water through a responsible regulatory system allows for a lot of different roles and jobs that come along, and projects, as you said, that go along with that heavy lift of environmental protection of our state. We have delegated responsibility from the United States EPA to do this. And so we have permit writers, we have field investigators, we have technical staff in all of our areas: air, water, underground storage tanks, radiological health, solid and hazardous waste. So in all these different areas, we have these disciplines that people can really build their passion and fulfill that need to find a way that they feel connected to the work that they do, the people that they serve. And the bottom line kind of joins with Dennis, is that Tennessee, we want to we want to do our part to promote the state of Tennessee's rich natural, historical, and archaeological heritage. And it's through the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation and our focused efforts that we're able to just drive every day at these goals.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we hear from our large employers is that, Tennessee's a great place to live. We have really fantastic natural resources, a lot of lakes. We have the mountains in the east part of Tennessee, a lot of state parks, these really great natural outdoor resources. And you guys have this great responsibility to help protect those.
The one thing I would say is, and this is not just here, I want to make sure that I'm clear, our state parks are all over the state. So doesn't matter where you might have an interest of living or maybe working, but we also have 8 environmental field offices also that house our environmental programs, the regulatory piece. So not just our state parks, but the actual field offices house our environmental offices across the state.
Yeah, it's a really good point. There's job opportunities everywhere with the state of Tennessee. Amy, you started as a teacher, have decided to leave the classroom. Talk to us a little bit about career opportunities for students that might be interested in education. We have another webinar all about this topic. Couple of people who are formerly at the Department of Education themselves, but career opportunities for students maybe outside of the classroom and why you chose that path.
Absolutely. I wanted to be a teacher since I was really young. I would line up my stuffed animals and have school. And then I had a little brother and he just got put in the lineup. And so I really enjoyed it. I taught high school in North Carolina and middle school in Tennessee, and I enjoyed a lot about it. I was also teaching in 2010, which is when Tennessee won $500 million from the federal government through a program called Race to the Top, which was very exciting, but it meant we had new academic standards, new teacher evaluation, new testing, new everything, it felt like. And my school district also had a new superintendent, and my building had a new principal. So you can imagine everybody is very well intended, has all sorts of great ideas. But for me as a newer career teacher, it felt like, oh my gosh, all of these people are telling me different things to do. I don't know which of these are suggestions, which of these are required. And I just started hearing all this talk about the word policy. And I was thinking to myself, well, who's making these policies and how can I get involved? And so that's what led me to the public policy program at Vanderbilt, which is at their Peabody College of Education and specifically focuses on education policy. So that was fascinating to be able to learn that there's a whole world of research about what things do and don't work in education and in what contexts. And that was really eye-opening for me to see that some things that I'd experienced as a teacher, there's actually research behind those policies. It sometimes just wasn't always clearly communicated, I felt, down to the classroom level. So I saw from colleagues who were getting the MPP alongside me in graduate school, we had many different internship experiences. My first internship was at the State Department, and that level of government is just a really great fit for me. I really enjoy seeing the state level view and thinking about systems we have around education. For other people, they hated it. It was sitting in a cubicle farm. It felt like it was way too far from classrooms. They wanted to be working at a district central office or at an organization like tnAchieves, something that's doing community service or organizing or advocacy for schools. There's instructional coaching opportunities and different professional development training opportunities where you can take what you've learned and share it with peers across the state. So there's a lot of different careers in education that I sure didn't know coming out of undergrad as an education major. I thought, well, I'll go be a teacher, and if I want to do something else, maybe I'll be a principal. I didn't really realize that there were all these other organizations around education, whether it's developing textbooks and instructional materials, whether it's doing training, research and evaluation on how those things are working. There's just a whole world of things going on in education that I know I didn't know about 12 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk to you about a specific part of your job. Policy is important, but you can't do policy without research.
Yes.
If you can't implement good policy, if you don't take the time to think about what the outcomes might look like and look at best practices around the state or around the country. I remember taking a research class in college, dreading it the whole time, thinking this is a thing I'll never use. But a lot of work and certainly a lot of policy is driven by research. Why is that an important skill for students to be learning now?
It's really critical in a couple of different ways, both so that when you're in a position of trying to make a decision, you can think about what's going to get you the most legitimate information to inform your position. For example, last fall, the state board members were going to vote on a potential change to how the state classifies and serves students who are English learners, who are coming from a different language background. And what we did is we looked at what other states in the Southeast were doing. And then for the ones that were on the path that we were thinking about, we were looking at their rates of success for their students who are English learners. Are they learning English more quickly? Are they able to exit specialized services? What are their outcomes like? And so that kind of research is critical to making a good decision for the schools in Tennessee. It's also important because sometimes, and I'm sure my colleagues in other agencies have experienced this, there will be folks who have an idea of what could be a good solution or policy, and they will cite research to back up their opinion. And you need to be conversant enough in the research process to know, is this legitimate or is it maybe one-sided, and we need to seek out some different input here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Dennis. I imagine there's a great deal of research that goes into where's Tennessee going to spend their money to market towards tourism. But also kind of on that front, we are hearing from employers across the state all the time when they're interviewing students and hiring new employees about the soft skills side, about being good writers, being able to work collaboratively, working on a team, problem solving. In one of our webinars about in-demand careers, Dan Caldwell at Nissan said, in your first job, all you're really going to be doing is solving problems. Talk a little bit about why those skills are so important and how students can be developing them now.
Yeah, great question, and we do hear that a lot. Soft skills such as collaboration and listening and thinking, creative problem solving. Those are just invaluable skills. You can be the best in the world at a certain subject, but those soft skills are absolutely critical. My tip there on that is I like to look at putting others' needs first and being a public servant. And when you're not self-serving and you're really wanting to serve someone else, your needs and your looking to self-serve kind of goes secondary, and really being humble and serving others' needs first. And I think that will really help you greatly as you're entering the job field.
Yeah, thanks so much for that insight there. Mary Margaret, in your field, what are some of the soft skills you're looking for? I would imagine that you could be a great park ranger. You could have a really great understanding of all the things happening inside of a park, but if you can't communicate with the people who are visiting about what they're seeing and what they're doing and why safety is important, it could be really detrimental. But what are some of the soft skills you see that students should be working on now?
Well, right now, considering learning is looking a little different, not in the classroom, is a great way to be prepared for a lot of our positions. It requires self-motivation. So without a supervisor sitting beside of you in a cubicle, you need to be self-motivated. So if you need a teacher over you all the time to get you to do your work on a day-to-day basis, you may want to really try to change your perspective and look at it a little differently. And it's a great way for you to learn today how, if you exhibit some self-motivation in your classwork as you finish up your senior year of high school, that just realize that when you get into the workforce, you may not have a manager or someone sitting directly beside of you to, whenever you're talking to someone or you're talking to a customer or you're trying to resolve an issue with a permit, or you're trying to enforce a permit, or you're doing an investigation in the field. So your ability to understand that motivation comes from within, not from those around, not from your boss or your teacher. That would be something that I really think today kids could learn and grow from.
Yeah, showing up every day with a good attitude and a strong work ethic and showing up on time. All of those are things that we can control, right?
Absolutely. We have a lot. We have a lot in our control, and those are the things that we can focus on and really choose to improve.
Absolutely. Amy, talk to us a little bit about soft skills and skills you see that students may be struggling with as they're entering the workforce. and things they can be doing now to better prepare themselves for that?
Yeah, you bet. I think one of the things that's really important that my colleagues have hit on is communication and being able to talk to a variety of different people. In my job, in the same day, I might talk to a state legislator, a university professor, and a grandmother who's upset about something going on in her grandchild's school. And being able to deal with everybody calmly and politely to get them the information they need, and also to be able to talk to different audiences. So not that you're giving a different message or you're giving different facts, but I'm going to speak to an upset grandmother in terms that just an average citizen could understand. I'm not going to use a lot of acronyms and jargon or legal sounding language, because that's not what she needs at that moment. However, if I'm talking to somebody who's trying to write a state law, I am going to speak much more technically, because words matter. And if a law is being drafted and there's maybe some unintended consequences to certain language, we need to avoid that. So I think something that students can practice is just thinking about the different ways you talk to people in your life. You probably talk to your friends about an app or something that you're using on social media much differently than you would if you were explaining it to your grandmother. So thinking about the areas of life where you talk to a boss, you talk to a friend, you talk to somebody in a community service organization you're with, and then thinking about how can I be consistent and convey the truth, but do it in a way that's going to help this person understand it the best.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we talk about a lot here at tnAchieves. When we're talking to teachers and counselors and principals in high schools about tnAchieves and students, this is a great opportunity to go to college and earn that college degree. And when we're talking to people, Dennis in his former life as an economic developer, we're talking about economic development and workforce development and why this is important for our employers in Tennessee. It's the same information, just presented in a different way. Mary Margaret, we'll start this next question with you. We are in kind of unprecedented times here with COVID-19 upon us. Everybody's business model has kind of been turned upside down. We've talked a little bit about creative thinking and thinking outside the box and problem solving and why that's all so important. Can you give us maybe some real life examples, whether it's now or maybe some other times where those skills are so important to try to continue on business as normal as possible?
Sure. We actually have worked collaboratively. We work in small groups together and small teams to try to explore and develop ways that we can assist our customers, the folks who we're regulating. How can we help them? I mean, we need to maybe change the way we're doing things or do things a little differently to better support them through this national emergency. So I'll give you an example. So we had a customer who wanted to change their processing in their plant to make hand sanitizer, but they needed a permit approved to do that. So we needed a way for them to go to the top of the pile and that we could meet their needs before we would do other things. So we have a way to do that and really serve our customers, looking for ways to serve our customers that best meet their needs, and then also the needs that the governor has set forth right now. And really, we're in this together. And that's the main thing that about the state of Tennessee, and is that there is no doubt in my mind we are being led by great leaders who really support and understand what it takes to get Tennessee through this period.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there. We have, I think Dennis said 23 or 24 state departments that all do very different things, but are all being led from one point, and we all have to move in the same direction and work together when we're in these trying times like that. And so it's very interesting to see how each department is kind of tackling this a little bit differently. And Amy, education right now, colleges have moved online, schools are closed, a totally different time than what we were expecting, a month or 6 weeks ago. So what are some of the things that the State Board of Education are doing to kind of think outside the box during these trying times?
So the State Board of Education is in a very interesting time. We have a special emergency meeting next Thursday to set rules and policies in light of this public health crisis for something I'm sure many of these students are interested in. How will graduation requirements change for kids who are seniors right now? What if I'm in college and I'm supposed to be doing my student teaching? I can't get the required hours. Can I still get a license? What if I'm teaching and my license is expiring? How can I get the professional development credit I need to renew it? So our agency has been working furiously to draft rules to address these scenarios and many, many others. And Mary Margaret's right, it really is a team effort. Everybody's in this together. I've been able to get a hold of people so quickly in school districts, the Higher Ed Commission, to make sure that whatever we do, colleges and universities will accept it. We've been talking to local school boards. We've been talking, obviously, to legislators, everybody you can think of, to try to get these rules drafted. We've been looking at what other states have done, but also making sure we tailor it to our expectations and our standards in Tennessee. So it has been flying fast and furious the last 2 weeks to get some draft rules established, and now we're talking to our board members to put the final touches on them so that they can vote next week. And over at the Department of Education, as I mentioned, they really are the more direct support to school districts. So they've been working with things like PBS and other educational apps and programs to have television programs and online learning that are available for students statewide, especially because we know that internet access can be a challenge. And then every school district is approaching remote learning a little bit differently, and that is an area where they have the authority to set their own programming. So it's a little sometimes confusing for folks to understand what can the state require versus what can local school districts do. And we're just trying to be really clear with districts. Here are the things that are going to be specific requirements that everybody needs to do to keep us moving forward. But here's all the ways you can be flexible because this is such an unprecedented and unusual time.
Yeah, I know that a lot of our institutions and school systems are trying to be as creative as possible as we're working to make sure that students aren't affected by this, and appreciate your insight into that. Dennis, people aren't traveling right now. We're being told to stay at home, and I saw a statistic about how many hotel rooms in Nashville are going unused every day, and some obviously a very challenging time for tourism. So what's happening at the Department of Tourist Development to kind of think outside the box and hopefully move forward from this very soon?
Absolutely. You're right. We're looking completely different than we were 6 weeks ago. We were ramping up for spring plans and spring break travel, and all of a sudden we're completely shifting gears. Our department has completely switched over to being a resource to all of our attractions and lodging partners. Every day we're having conference calls pretty much all day long between different stakeholders and different partners. And on a personal level, I am busy digesting the federal CARES Act and understanding all of the SBA, Small Business Administration, loans and grants and the stimulus package that's out there, and trying to help our partners understand ways to hang on and survive. You're right. We've got payroll protection plans with all of the folks that are getting laid off in the hospitality and restaurant business. And we're trying to be a resource to those folks. Simultaneously, we do realize that brighter days are ahead. So we are busy drafting plans for recovery and to look at the resources that we may need to accelerate our message and to have a great back half of the year to help our businesses hang on and recover. So definitely looking different than we were 6 weeks ago.
Well, I appreciate all three of you talking about some of the real life examples of things that are happening, and why it is so important to be flexible and be adaptable and always be prepared, because this is something that none of us saw coming, and every organization is handling it in a different way. And a lot of people are looking to state government to set that tone. So appreciate you all sharing some insight into that. Amy, we'll start with you on this next one. What does the job market look like in the next 5 to 10 years, or even for students that are graduating here in just a couple of months? What type of opportunities are going to be available for our future college graduates on the Tennessee Promise program?
Well, I would certainly plug beginning as a classroom teacher if you're looking to get into the education space in a different way later on. The experience I had as a teacher was something that informs my decision making every day when it comes to setting policies. I'm always thinking, okay, think back. If I had 134 eighth graders I was going to teach today, could I fit this one more thing in, or would this really seem important to me? So having that lens before you go into a policy making or any other kind of position in education is critical. We also have a teacher shortage in Tennessee, especially high school math and science. And I know that you all could think back to teachers who really made a difference in your life. And just imagine if you were that person for somebody else. So I would really, really encourage folks to study teaching either in undergrad, or there are also now pathways that some districts are using. They call them grow your own, where you can be in another career field. And then with a partnership between the school district and a college, you can get your teaching license while you're in the classroom, having your own students and earning money as a teacher. So even if you don't study teaching in undergrad, there's a way forward. In terms of government, I think there's definitely a lot of openings. As I said, my agency is pretty small. We typically are looking for attorneys or other similar positions, researchers, that kind of thing. The Department of Ed and the Higher Ed Commission often have openings available, and in the 8 regional offices the department has, so you don't necessarily have to move in to Nashville. And then finally, also think about school districts that need information technology staff. They need budgeting staff. School districts are a really big employer in a lot of our smaller communities as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. I know in some of the communities that we serve in rural Tennessee, the school district and the hospitals are the 2 largest employers, which are 2 really popular majors for our students. So I appreciate you sharing some insight into that. Dennis, what about in your field? What does the job market look like over the next few years? What kind of jobs can our graduates be thinking about?
Yeah, the cool thing about tourism is there are entry-level jobs that you can find in your local community. There is the state Department of Tourist Development that has many jobs, and there are federal jobs, and then there's many jobs in the tourism business at the attractions. So you think about Dollywood and Graceland and the Grand Ole Opry. There's different levels of hospitality at those attractions. So really, no matter where you are, there's opportunities, and if you're willing to travel, that even opens up a larger job field for you.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. Jobs and tourism all around the state. There's no doubt about that. And it kind of fits in really nicely, the work that you're doing to promote some of those sites and our big tourist sites. And Mary Margaret, the work you're doing to promote our natural resources. What are some of those jobs that will be available for students in the next 5 or 10 years or so?
We will have a great need for students to and folks to apply for positions with us. We're going to have over the next 10 years, 30% of our workforce will be eligible for retirement. So we need scientists. We're going to need engineers. I would suggest, though, you all offer a job shadowing program. And so I do think that it's a great way for students to see a day in the life by job shadowing, someone at a park, if you're interested in a particular aspect of one of Tennessee's state parks as a career path, or if you're interested in one of in assisting in air, land, water, in any of those programs. Job shadowing is a great way for students to see what that day in the life as an engineer or a scientist or a park manager, a park ranger, or a budget analyst or a grants manager or in a field investigator, what that day in the life might look like for them. So we would love to hear from any students through you all if there's an interest for job shadowing.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate that offer. We do have students that really enjoy getting out and using that job shadowing opportunity. And we've had some really great partnerships with the state parks over the years where students are volunteering their time to help around state parks. And we appreciate all of that partnership with your organization. So we appreciate all of your insight into careers in government. We always end these webinars with across the spectrum with 3 questions for our panelists. Mary Margaret, we'll start with you. And I'm going to kind of tie questions 1 and 2 together here. So you can kind of think through that as one response. But first would be, what is one thing you know now that you did not know while you were in college that you wish that you knew? And then what is your biggest piece of advice for students? It seems like oftentimes those two things kind of wrap into one. So we'll start with you on that one.
I think that I wish I would have known that I could have hedged behaviors and people that were maybe negative, or said, oh, you can't do that. Or, you're from a rural community in West Virginia. What makes you think that you're going to own a company, that you're going to do, guidance, navigation, and control for NASA? So I'm here to tell you, if I could have, I just hope that all the students understand, if you can hedge behaviors and people that are destructive or negative to you and your life goals, and just stay focused and manage your goals with all the strength and determination needed to get you to the level of achievement that you have at that moment in your life. The other thing I would say is that you can really live on a lot less financially than what you think. And there's really not, if you're creative, there's not a real need to go into the type of debt that a lot of our students are really experiencing today. And so I would say that my friend on the call, she might have some personal things to say about that too, about the need to, that there's really not that need to go into such debt, and if you just explore and look for ways to keep from doing that. Did I answer everything?
No, yeah, that was great. I think it was really good advice. Amy, what about you? What's something maybe that you know now that you didn't know when you were in college that you wish you knew, and some advice for students?
I think one thing I didn't know when I was in college was I had a tendency, if I was in a job or an internship and it wasn't going quite the way I thought, I would look to jump to something else maybe a little quickly. And I think just being a little older, having a little more perspective, just really taking time to strategically think about, what do I like about this environment? What do I not like? What could I change? What's in my power to change and what isn't? And then making a more strategic decision of when you're looking for something else, do those job shadowing experiences, do those informational interviews, make sure you're moving into a situation that actually is what you were looking for a little bit more. And along that line, try to stay positive and identify from every job or internship you have those 1, 2, or 3 skills that you will take with you in the future, even if you don't like that job that much. Identify the things you're learning that will go with you. For example, I had a job that involved a lot of data entry and annual federal reporting and looking at spreadsheets. And for some people, that's their bread and butter and they love it. For me, turned out not to be the right fit. But now I know what those processes are and how they go. So if I'm making a policy that affects one of those things, I know what's going on in the background and what people are going to have to do to implement it. So just thinking about what you're going to bring with you that's positive, and then making a strategic decision about what's next.
Yeah, that's really good advice. It's one of the things we've heard across the board on these webinars is that, find what you love and do that, and it doesn't feel like you're going to work every day. I think that's really good advice. Dennis, what about you? What do you know now that you didn't know in school that you wish you knew, and what is some advice you have for students?
Man, there's a couple things I could tell you, but you may hear from your parents or grandparents that time flies, and time truly does fly. It goes by so fast. So my advice would be, don't waste a single day. Time is flying by so fast. And I'd like to echo something that Mary Margaret said. You're going to have folks in your life that may be speaking, may not be speaking life into you. I just challenge you to look at your friends, your friend groups that are surrounding you. Are they speaking life to you? Are they talking down about your dreams or your vision? And I would just challenge you to surround yourself with a network of friends that challenge you. Maybe get around folks that are smarter than you, always heard it said, if you're the smartest person in your group, find a new group. And what that does, it sharpens you to be around folks that challenge you to be more. In this program, I wish this program, tnAchieves, would have existed when I was in high school. The mentors that had plugged in and volunteered to mentor you, they're there for a reason, and they want to pour into you and help you become more and bounce off the experience that these folks are offering to you. Don't just think of them as someone that sends you an email or text periodically. These folks truly want to help you, challenge you to job shadow with them if you can, and just soak up information like a sponge. And you can be anything you want to be. Don't let anybody talk down on your dreams. And I'm living proof of that.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. The mentors are such a great resource for students. And we did a webinar in this series on leadership. We had Randy Boyd, who's the president of the University of Tennessee, Christy DeAlejandro, who's the executive director of tnAchieves, and then Mike Ragsdale, who's the mayor of Knox County for 8 years. And one of his biggest pieces of advice was to surround yourself with smart people. He said that he was rarely the smartest person in the room, and when he was the smartest person in the room, it was because he was the only person in the room. So that was something he gave some advice with that I think he would echo. So last question, it's one of my favorite questions. Dennis, we'll start with you this time. If time and money or talent wasn't an issue at all, you could do anything in the world besides what you're doing right now, what would you be doing?
That's funny. I asked my wife this morning as I was looking over the questions about that, and I told her I thought I would want to be a boat captain down in the British Virgin Islands somewhere and run a snorkel boat. And she started laughing. But that point being, do what makes you happy. The money will fall in place. Don't get hung up on salaries and so forth. I believe you said it earlier there, Graham, that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I'll just challenge you to find your heart, your purpose, what it is that makes you tick. And if you chase that, you'll never work a day in your life. And there's so many great things out there to do.
I'm down for Virgin Island boat captain. I like that idea.
She actually laughed about that. So no, I brought that one up, and yeah, it's sounding pretty good right now.
It does sound pretty good right now. Something outdoors. Amy, what about you?
I would be a professional organizer. I love organizing things. It makes me very happy. I am putting that skill to good use as we're all at home. I am driving my husband and our son crazy because everything looks a little different day to day because I need something to do to keep my brain off our current situation. So far I've organized the homeschooling area for my kindergartner, and I've been working on the kitchen. So I think I could have a good time doing that for other people.
Well, when we're allowed to start leaving our houses again, I've got some projects if you want to come
over.
All
right. You keep me in.
That is not my strength, but we all need people with different strengths. Mary Margaret, what about you? If you could be doing anything besides working at TDEC, what would you be doing?
I did my first section hike on the Appalachian Trail last year, so I would like to do the entire Appalachian Trail. I would like to hike the entire Appalachian Trail, but to enhance my learning, I would like to earn my PhD if I could do that while I continue working at TDEC. But I haven't really found the balance between work and school and my family activities, so family responsibilities. But those are things that I would really like to do.
Yeah, I like that. In a time where we're all stuck at home, it feels like getting outside is such a treat these days, and that sounds like a great opportunity. Well, I want to thank all of you, Mary Margaret Chandler, Amy Owen, Dennis Tumlin. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you. It was great.
I also
thank you.
Think you guys left out of your introductions here, so I'm going to plug it now. We have a decade worth of tnAchieves mentor experience between the three of you. So you're all tnAchieves mentors. You've helped us with job shadowing previously, helped us in a lot of different ways. So we appreciate your support. We appreciate the time you've given us today. So thanks so much for being here. For our listeners today, our audience today, to our students, hang on for just one more minute. We've got some information coming up for you. to make sure that this counts towards your community service requirements. We appreciate that you've tuned in today. Thanks for listening. We hope that you will join us on some other of our webinar series for our virtual community service at www.tnAchieves.org. Thanks so much for listening today, and have a great day. Thank you for watching this installment of the Tennessee Achieves Virtual Community Service webinar. Your attendance will be automatically recorded, and your 1 hour of community service is being credited to you. Please click Submit on this screen to ensure that your attendance is recorded for you. For this community service opportunity, you will not need to complete the community service form. We hope you found this opportunity to be engaging and informative. Please watch more of this series by visiting www.tnachieves.org. We hope you have a great day. Thank you.